The river always sounded angry to her, even on calm days. Sarah stood at the edge of the rocky bank, bare feet planted in mud still cold from the night, watching the water rush past with that endless, relentless roar. 5 years. 5 years since it took them. 5 years since she stopped being a wife, a mother, a woman the town respected. Now she was just the cursed widow who lived too close to the water, the woman who should have moved away, but couldn't. Because leaving meant forgetting, and forgetting felt like killing them all over again. She came here every morning before dawn, a ritual of remembering, a punishment maybe. The town thought she was crazy. Maybe she was. The sun broke over the ridge, painting the water gold and red, and that's when she saw it. A shape caught between the rocks downstream. Dark hair floating like river grass. Pale skin. A body. Her breath stopped. No, not again, not another one. But her legs were already moving, crashing through the shallow current, cold water shocking her awake. She reached the rocks and grabbed the arm, pulling hard. The body shifted. A young woman, Apache from the beadwork on her torn dress, lips blue, skin like ice. Dead. She had to be dead. Sarah's hands moved without thought. She dragged the girl onto the bank, flipped her onto her back, pressed both palms against her chest, and pushed. Water bubbled from the girl's mouth. Sarah pushed again. Again. Breathed into those cold lips, tasted river water and death. Pushed, breathed, pushed. The girl convulsed and vomited water across the rocks. Sarah rolled her to the side, held her as she coughed and gasped, those dark eyes flying open, wild with terror. The girl tried to scramble away but collapsed, too weak to stand. Sarah caught her, pulled her close, felt the frantic heartbeat against her own chest. "You're safe," Sarah whispered, knowing the girl probably didn't understand English. "You're safe now." She carried the girl back to the cabin, a small, sturdy thing her husband built with his own hands a lifetime ago. Inside, she laid her near the fireplace, wrapped her in every blanket she owned, built the fire high. The girl drifted in and out of consciousness, murmuring words in a language Sarah didn't know. She looked maybe 19, 20 at most. Beautiful in that fierce way of young women who haven't yet learned to doubt themselves. For 3 days, Sarah nursed her. Broth made from rabbit and wild herbs, water sipped slowly, cool cloths for the fever that came and went. The girl's eyes followed her everywhere, suspicious at first, then softening into something like gratitude. On the 3rd morning, she finally spoke. "Ayana," she said, touching her own chest. "Sarah." She touched her own heart in response. Ayana smiled, and it transformed her whole face. Then she touched Sarah's hand and said something long and musical that Sarah couldn't understand, but felt in her bones. "Thank you." It meant, "thank you." That afternoon, the sound came. Thunder, but the sky was clear. Sarah went to the window and her blood turned to ice water. Riders, dozens of them, warriors on painted horses, carrying weapons, faces marked for war. Different tribes, she could tell even from a distance. Apache, Navajo, others she couldn't name, heading straight for her cabin. She looked at Ayana, who had gone pale, but was struggling to stand. The girl said something urgent, desperate, but Sarah didn't need to understand the words. "Run, hide, they're coming for you." But there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Sarah had survived 5 years of grief. If this was how it ended, so be it. She walked outside and stood on her porch, hands empty at her sides, chin up. Facing death was easier than facing another sunrise alone anyway. The riders stopped 20 yards away. The horses snorted and stamped, the warriors stared, and then one man dismounted. He was massive, shoulders like a bull, skin bronzed, dark by sun and heritage both. His hair was black and long, tied back with leather. His face was hard planes and sharp angles, handsome in a dangerous way, with eyes that had seen too much violence to ever be truly soft. He wore a mix of Apache and cowboy clothing, buckskin and denim, and moved with a predator's grace. He walked toward her slowly, hands visible, no weapon drawn. Behind him another man dismounted, younger, leaner, with sandy hair and a face that smiled easier, but eyes just as haunted. They approached together, and Sarah's heart hammered so hard she thought they must hear it. The dark-haired man stopped at the base of her porch steps. He looked at her for a long moment, and she saw something flicker in his expression. Recognition, maybe. Not of her face, but of her pain. Like seeing his own reflection. "You, Sarah Brennan?" His voice was deep, rough, touched with an accent she couldn't quite place. "I am. I'm Cole. This is Jesse." He gestured to the other man, who nodded at her with surprising gentleness. "You pulled a girl from the river 3 days back." It wasn't a question. Sarah nodded anyway. "That girl is Ayanna, daughter of Chief Takoda. Promised bride meant to unite 5 tribes in peace." Cole's jaw tightened. "She went missing 6 days ago. We thought she was dead. Nearly started a war over it." Sarah's throat went dry. "She almost was dead. But she isn't. Because of you." Cole turned and gestured to the assembled riders. "These men represent 5 nations. Apache, Navajo, Comanche, Cheyenne, Lakota. They came to honor the debt." Before Sarah could process that, the warriors began moving. They approached in groups, laying items at the base of her porch. Horses with painted markings, bundles of furs, a small leather pouch that clinked with the sound of gold, dried herbs tied with sinew, a rifle, well-made and oiled. More and more, until her small yard was filled with tribute. Sarah stared, unable to speak. No one had given her anything in 5 years except judgment and whispers. Cole climbed the first step, close enough now that she could see the scars on his knuckles, the old knife wound along his jaw. "You gave us back what we thought was lost. We don't forget debts like that. If you were this woman, living alone for years, would you let 2 strangers step into your home on a night like this?" Ayanna appeared in the doorway behind Sarah, weak but standing. She said something in Apache that made several warriors smile. Cole translated without taking his eyes off Sarah. "She says you have a healing touch, that you breathed life back into her when the river tried to claim it." He paused. "She says you understand loss." Sarah's eyes burned. She would not cry. "Not in front of these men. Not in front of anyone." "The town know about this?" Cole asked quietly. "Not yet. They will. Soon." His expression darkened. "White men hear about Apache gold. They get ideas. Bad ones." Jesse spoke up for the first time, his voice lighter but no less serious. "We'd like to stay. Keep watch for a while. Make sure no trouble finds you." Sarah looked between them. 2 dangerous men offering protection she hadn't asked for. Smart women would say no. Smart women would keep their distance, but Sarah had stopped being smart the day she lost everything. "Barn's out back," she said. "You can stable your horses there." Something flickered in Cole's eyes. Approval, maybe, or surprise. Jesse grinned outright. "Thank you, Mom," Jesse said, tipping an imaginary hat. The warriors departed as quickly as they'd come, thunder fading into the distance, leaving only Cole and Jesse and a yard full of impossible gifts. Sarah watched them tend to their horses, moving with the easy efficiency of men who'd lived hard and survived harder. Cole's shoulders flexed under his shirt as he lifted a saddle. Jesse laughed at something, the sound bright and jarring in a place that had known only silence for so long. Ayanna touched Sarah's arm gently. When Sarah looked at her, the girl smiled and said something soft. She didn't need translation for that. "You're not alone anymore." That night, Sarah cooked for more than one person for the first time in 5 years. Rabbit stew, cornbread, coffee strong enough to strip paint. The cabin felt impossibly small, with 3 extra bodies in it, impossibly warm. Ayanna sat near the fire, still recovering. Cole and Jesse sat at the table, polite and quiet, letting Sarah set the pace. "You built this place?" Cole asked, looking at the solid walls, the careful joinery. "My husband did." Sarah set down bowls of stew. "Long time ago?" Cole nodded, asked nothing more. Jesse filled the silence instead. "Good work. Man knew what he was doing." He tasted the stew, and his eyebrows shot up. This is amazing. It's just rabbit. It's magic. Jesse's smile was genuine, unguarded. I've been eating Cole's cooking for 3 years. Trust me, this is magic. Cole snorted. You're still alive, aren't you? Barely. Despite herself, Sarah felt her mouth twitch. Almost a smile. The sensation felt foreign, like a language she'd forgotten how to speak. They ate in comfortable quiet. Ayanna fell asleep by the fire, exhausted. Jesse helped clear the dishes without being asked, chattering about nothing important, easy and warm. Cole stood by the window, watching the darkness, a silent sentinel. You expecting trouble tonight? Sarah asked. Always expect trouble, Cole said without turning. That way, it doesn't surprise you when it comes. You live like that, always waiting for the worst? Now he looked at her and the weight of his gaze was almost physical. Don't you? The truth of it hit her chest. Yes, she did. Every day for 5 years. Thought so, Cole said softly. Recognized the look. Jesse dried the last dish and hung the towel carefully. We should let you sleep, ma'am. We'll be in the barn if you need anything. Sarah, just Sarah. Sarah. Jesse's smile gentled. Pretty name. They left, and the cabin felt cavernous again. Sarah banked the fire, covered Ayanna with another blanket, and lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling. Outside, she could hear the low murmur of male voices, Jesse's laugh, the sound of horses settling, sounds of life, sounds of people. She hadn't realized how much silence could hurt until it was broken. The next morning, she found Jesse fixing her fence. The posts had been leaning for 2 years, and she'd ignored them, too tired to care. He worked with his shirt sleeves rolled up, humming something under his breath, looking like he belonged there. You don't have to do that, Sarah said. Want to? Jesse hammered in another nail. Besides, keeps me busy. Cole's out hunting. Man never sits still. And you do. Hell no, he grinned. That's why we get along. 2 restless bastards with nowhere to be. Sarah found herself smiling again. Twice in 2 days. A record. She went inside and started bread, her hands moving through the familiar motions. Ayanna was awake, looking stronger. The girl helped without words, kneading dough beside her, their hands working in rhythm. When the loaves were rising, Ayanna took Sarah's hand and led her outside. The morning was clear and bright. Jesse had finished the fence and was now checking the barn roof. In the distance, Cole emerged from the tree line carrying 2 rabbits and a wild turkey. He moved like smoke, silent and sure. Ayanna said something and pointed at Cole, then at Jesse, then at Sarah. She made a circle with her hands, encompassing all of them, and smiled. Family, maybe, or pack, something that meant together. Sarah's throat tightened. She didn't deserve this, didn't deserve their kindness or their protection, or the way Jesse hummed while he worked, or the way Cole's eyes softened slightly when he looked at her. She was cursed. Everyone knew it. But Ayanna squeezed her hand like she could hear the thoughts, and Sarah squeezed back. That afternoon, riders came from town. 3 men, including the sheriff, faces hard and suspicious. Sarah's stomach dropped. Cole and Jesse materialized from the barn, flanking her before the riders even dismounted. Sarah, Sheriff Morrison said, eyes flicking between the 2 men. Heard you had some visitors yesterday. Indian visitors. News travels fast. It does when it involves savages and gold. Morrison's hand rested on his gun belt. That true. They bring you gold. They brought gifts to thank me. Thank you for what? Saving a life. Morrison's eyes narrowed. That gold belongs to the territory. Can't have Indians just giving it away to whoever they please. Cole stepped forward, and Sarah felt the air change, felt the violence coiled in him like a spring wound too tight. The gold was freely given, Cole said, voice dangerously quiet, by 5 tribes who understand honor better than you ever will. Who the hell are you? Someone who knows the law better than you do. Those gifts were legal tribute. Touch them, and you're the thief. Morrison's face reddened. You threatening me, breed. The word hung in the air like poison. Jesse's hand drifted toward his gun. Cole didn't move, But Sarah saw his jaw clench, saw the muscle jump in his neck. "Just stating facts," Cole said. "But if you want to make it a threat, I'm happy to oblige." For a long moment everyone was still. Then Morrison spat in the dirt and hauled himself back onto his horse. "This isn't over," he said. "Town's gonna want answers." "Town can come ask me themselves," Sarah said, finding her voice. "These men are my guests. The gifts are mine. Anyone has a problem with that, they know where I live." Morrison stared at her like he'd never seen her before. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe she'd been invisible so long even she'd forgotten she could be seen. The riders left in a cloud of dust. Cole's shoulders didn't relax until they were out of sight. "That's gonna cause problems," Jessie said quietly. "I know." Sarah looked at Cole. "You didn't have to do that?" "Yeah, I did." He met her eyes and something passed between them. Understanding, shared fury at a world that took and never gave back. "Man like that? He'll be back, with more men. Let him come." Cole's mouth almost smiled. Almost. That evening they ate together again. Ayanna was well enough to help cook, her movements graceful and sure. Jessie told stories that made even Cole shake his head. Tales of their travels that were probably half lies and half truth, and entirely entertaining. Sarah listened and felt something loosening in her chest. That tight knot of grief that had lived there for 5 years. It wasn't gone, but it wasn't strangling her anymore. After dinner, Cole went to check the perimeter. Sarah followed him without thinking, drawn by something she didn't want to name. She found him by the river, standing in the exact spot where she'd pulled Ayanna from the water. The moon was full, turning everything silver. "You come here a lot?" Cole asked without turning. "Every day." "Why?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "My husband and son drowned here, 5 years ago, spring flood." Cole turned to look at her then, and his expression was open in a way it hadn't been before. Raw. "I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't bring them back." "No." He looked at the water. "It doesn't." Something in his tone made her ask, "You lose someone?" "Everyone I ever cared about, one way or another." He picked up a stone and threw it into the current. "Mother died when I was born. Father drank himself to death. Apache tribe that raised me got massacred by the army when I was 15. I watched it happen from the ridge where my father sent me to hunt. Came back to find everyone dead." Sarah's breath caught. "Cole. Jesse lost his whole family to cholera. We found each other after. 2 men with nothing. Figured that made us brothers." He looked at her. "Point is, I know what it's like to stand by the water and wish it would take you too." She hadn't expected that. Hadn't expected him to see straight through her skin to the truth underneath. "But you didn't let it," Cole said. "You kept breathing, kept living. That takes more strength than dying ever could." "Doesn't feel like strength." "It never does." He moved closer, and she could feel the heat of him in the cool night air. "But you pulled a dying girl from this river. You stood up to the sheriff. You're feeding strangers and letting us stay when you could have turned us away. That's not weakness, Sarah." Her name in his mouth sounded different, sounded like something precious. "I'm not who I used to be," she whispered. "Good. Who you used to be is gone. Who you are now, she's still here, still fighting." He reached out slowly, giving her time to move away, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. His fingers were rough, calloused, warm. The touch was brief, but it burned through her like lightning. "You're not alone anymore," Cole said quietly. "Not while we're here." Sarah couldn't speak, could barely breathe. It had been so long since anyone touched her with gentleness. So long since she'd wanted them to. They stood there by the river, close enough to touch, but not touching, and Sarah felt something shift, felt the possibility of being more than just a ghost in her own life. The days that followed fell into a rhythm. Cole hunted and kept watch. Jesse fixed everything that was broken, and there was a lot that was broken. Ayanna grew stronger, teaching Sarah words in Apache, laughing at Sarah's terrible pronunciation. The cabin filled with sound and warmth and the kind of chaos that comes from people learning to live together. Sarah caught herself watching Cole when he didn't know she was looking. The way he moved, economical and sure. The way his rare smiles transformed his whole face. The way he listened when she spoke, like her words mattered. Jessie was easier, all sunshine and charm, making her laugh with ridiculous stories and shameless flirting that felt safe because they both knew it didn't mean anything. But Cole was different. Cole saw her. One afternoon, Jessie was teaching Ayanna to play cards while Sarah kneaded bread. Cole came in from outside, shirt damp with sweat, and Sarah's hands faltered in the dough. He caught her looking, and something heated in his eyes, something that made her face flush and her breath catch. "Need any help?" he asked, voice low. "I'm fine." He moved beside her anyway, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "Show me. You want to learn to make bread? I want to learn whatever you want to teach me." The double meaning was clear. Sarah's pulse jumped. She showed him how to knead the dough, their hands working side by side, his fingers thick and strong beside her slender ones. Every accidental brush of skin felt electric. "Like this?" Cole asked. "Yes, just like that." Jessie Wolfe whistled from the table. "Get a room, you two." "Shut up, Jessie," Cole said without heat. "Make me, brother." Ayanna giggled. Sarah felt her face burning but couldn't stop smiling. That night, a storm rolled in. Thunder shook the walls, and rain hammered the roof. Sarah lit candles and built up the fire. Ayanna fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the day. Jessie stretched out near the hearth, using his saddle as a pillow. "Storm'll pass by morning," he said, yawning. "Always does." Cole stood by the window, watching the lightning. Sarah brought him coffee, their fingers brushing as he took the cup. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Don't sleep much anyway." "Nightmares?" "Memories. Same thing." He sipped the coffee. "You?" "I dream about the river, about them drowning. I can never reach them in time." Cole's jaw tightened. "I dream about the ridge, about hearing the screams and not being able to stop it." They stood in silence, two people haunted by different ghosts, but the same guilt. "It wasn't your fault," Sarah said quietly. "Wasn't yours either. Feels like it was." "I know." He set down the cup and turned to face her fully. "But feeling guilty doesn't make it true." Lightning flashed, illuminating his face in harsh white light. Sarah saw the scars there, the lines of pain, the weight of years spent surviving. He was beautiful in a broken way, like her. Cold. She didn't know what she wanted to say, just his name, just the shape of it. He stepped closer. Rain pounded the roof. The fire crackled. Jessie snored softly, and Cole reached up slowly, cupping her face with one rough hand, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "Tell me to stop," he said, voice rough. She couldn't, didn't want to. He leaned in and pressed his forehead to hers, breathing her in. Not a kiss, something more intimate than that. Sharing breath, sharing space, sharing the weight of all their broken pieces. "Sarah," he whispered, and it sounded like a prayer. She tilted her head up and their lips met. Soft, careful, like they were both made of glass and might shatter. His mouth was warm and tasted like coffee and rain. Her hands found his chest, felt his heart hammering beneath her palms. He deepened the kiss slowly, one hand sliding into her hair, the other resting on her waist. It wasn't desperate or rough. It was gentle, reverent. Like he was trying to memorize the shape of her. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Cole rested his forehead against hers again. "I don't do this," he said quietly. "Don't let people close." "Neither do I. But I want to. With you." Sarah's eyes burned. "I'm scared." "Me too." He kissed her forehead. "We'll be scared together." They held each other while the storm raged outside, and Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in 5 years. Hope, fragile and terrifying and real. The storm passed. Morning came soft and golden. Jessie made terrible coffee and burned the bacon, but they ate it anyway, laughing. Ayanna braided Sarah's hair, nimble fingers weaving patterns Sarah had never learned. Cole sat at the table cleaning his rifle. But his eyes kept finding Sarah, warm and steady. It felt like family, like home. But good things never lasted. Sarah had learned that the hard way. 3 days later, Morrison came back. This time he brought 20 men. Ranchers, farmers, townspeople, looking for an excuse to take what wasn't theirs. They surrounded the cabin at dawn, guns drawn. Cole and Jesse were already awake, already armed. Sarah grabbed her husband's old rifle, hands shaking but steady enough. Ayanna moved behind her. Morrison sat his horse at the front of the group, face smug. "This is your last chance, Sarah," he called. "Hand over the gold and the Indian girl, and we'll leave peaceful." "Go to hell," Sarah shouted back. "Have it your way." The first shot shattered her front window. Jesse returned fire, dropping a man from his horse. Cole moved like lightning, shooting twice, and 2 more men fell. Sarah aimed carefully and fired, missing but making them scatter. "Get back inside," Cole yelled. They retreated into the cabin. Bullets thudded into the walls. Glass shattered. Jesse barricaded the door while Cole covered the windows. "How many?" Jesse asked. "Too many," Cole said grimly. Sarah reloaded with shaking hands. This was it. This was how it ended. Bleeding out in the cabin her husband built, killed by neighbors who couldn't stand to see her survive. Then the thunder came. Not thunder. Hoofbeats. Hundreds of them. Sarah looked out the broken window, and her breath stopped. Warriors poured over the ridge like a flood. Apache, Navajo, Comanche, Cheyenne, Lakota. Painted for war, armed and angry. Leading them was Chief Dakota himself, Ayanna's father, massive and terrifying on a black stallion. The townspeople saw them and panic broke out. Horses reared, men shouted. Morrison tried to rally them, but it was useless. The warriors surrounded them in seconds, a wall of fury and retribution. Chief Dakota rode straight to the cabin. Cole stepped outside, hands visible, speaking in Apache. The chief responded, then looked past him to Sarah. She walked out slowly, Ayanna at her side. Ayanna ran to her father, embracing him. The chief held her tight, then looked at Sarah. He dismounted and approached, towering over her. Sarah held her ground. The chief spoke. Cole translated. "He says you saved his daughter. You gave her back when she was lost. He says you are now family, under his protection, always." The chief placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder, squeezed gently, then turned to Morrison and the townspeople. He spoke, voice carrying like thunder. Cole translated again. "He says this woman is Apache now. These men are her brothers. Anyone who harms them harms his tribe. Anyone who steals from them steals from 5 nations. Anyone foolish enough to try will not live to regret it." Morrison's face went white. The chief gave an order. The warriors lowered their weapons, but didn't disperse. A message, a warning. "We're watching." Morrison and his men fled like rabbits, stumbling over each other to escape. The warriors let them go, laughing. Chief Dakota embraced Cole like a son, then Jesse. He spoke to Sarah again, and Ayanna translated this time, her English halting but clear. "Father says you are brave, you are strong, you are worthy." Ayanna smiled. "He says you have suffered enough. Time to live again." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. The chief touched her face gently, the way a father would, then mounted his horse. The warriors began to leave, but slowly, making sure the message was clear. This land was protected now. Ayanna hugged Sarah tight. "I come visit, teach you more words. You are sister now." "Sister," Sarah repeated and meant it. When the tribes finally left, the 3 of them stood in the ruined cabin, looking at the broken windows and bullet holes. "Well," Jesse said, "guess we got some repairs to do." Sarah started laughing. Couldn't help it. Laughed until tears streamed down her face, until her sides hurt, until Jesse joined in and even Cole's mouth twitched. "You're insane," Cole said, but his eyes were soft. "Probably." Sarah wiped her eyes. "But I'm alive." "Yeah, you are." They rebuilt together, fixed the windows, patched the walls, made the cabin stronger than before. Word spread through town about what happened, about the 5 tribes and their protection. People gave Sarah a wide berth after that, not out of fear of her curse, but out of fear of retribution. She didn't mind. She had everything she needed right here. Weeks passed. Ayana visited often, bringing gifts and laughter. The gold sat untouched in Sarah's trunk, more of a symbol than anything else. Jesse talked about moving on sometimes, but never seriously. Cole stayed quiet, but he stayed. One evening, Sarah found him by the river again, the place that had taken so much from her, the place where everything had changed. "You thinking about leaving?" she asked. Cole looked at her. "Would it matter if I was?" "Yes." He smiled, slow and genuine. "Then I'm not." "And Jesse?" "Where I go, he goes. We're a package deal." Sarah moved closer. "And where are you going?" "Nowhere." Cole pulled her against him, arms solid and warm around her. "Found what I was looking for." "What's that?" "Home." She kissed him then, deep and hungry, pouring 5 years of loneliness and fear and grief into it. He met her with equal intensity, hands tangling in her hair, body pressed against hers. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were dark with want. "Sarah," her name was a growl, "I know. I want you, want this, want to wake up next to you every morning and know you're safe. Then stay. I will. For as long as you'll have me. Forever might not be long enough." He kissed her again, softer this time, a promise. Behind them, the river rushed on, eternal and unstoppable, but it didn't sound angry anymore. It sounded like music. Jesse found them later, grinning like an idiot. "Took you too long enough." Cole flipped him off. Sarah laughed. That night, they sat around the table, the 3 of them, eating Sarah's cooking and drinking terrible coffee and talking about nothing and everything. Jesse told stories. Cole interjected with dry commentary. Sarah felt her heart expanding, making room for new memories to sit beside the old ones. The cabin felt warm, full, right. Before bed, Cole pulled her aside. "You sure about this? About us?" "I've never been sure about anything in my life," Sarah said honestly. "But I want to try. That's all we need. Just a chance." He kissed her goodnight, gentle and sweet, then went to the barn with Jesse. Sarah lay in her bed alone, but didn't feel alone anymore. Could hear Jesse's laugh floating through the darkness. Could see Cole's silhouette passing by the window on his watch. She fell asleep, smiling. The seasons changed. Summer bled into autumn. The trees turned gold and red. The 5 tribes visited occasionally, bringing news and gifts and friendship. Ayana came most often, teaching Sarah her language, learning English in return. Sometimes she stayed for days, sleeping by the fire, laughing at Jesse's terrible jokes. Cole taught Sarah to shoot properly, his body pressed against her back as he adjusted her aim. His breath warm on her neck. Jesse taught her to play poker and lost spectacularly every time, claiming she was cheating but unable to prove it. They hunted together, cooked together, lived together. Sarah stopped going to the river to remember the dead, started going to remember she was alive. One night, wrapped in Cole's arms in the loft they'd built above the cabin, she whispered, "I never thought I'd be happy again." "You happy now?" His voice rumbled through his chest. "Yes." "Good." He kissed her temple. "You deserve it. So do you. Maybe. But having you makes me believe it." They made love slowly, carefully, learning each other's bodies and boundaries. His hands were reverent, worshipful, tracing every scar and curve like she was something holy. She explored the landscape of his skin, the old wounds and hard muscle, making him groan and shudder. It wasn't perfect, but it was real and raw and theirs. Afterward, tangled together, sweating and satisfied, Cole held her close. "I love you," he said quietly. "Been trying not to, failing miserably." Sarah's throat tightened. "I love you too. Both of you." "Jesse?" "Not like you, but yes. He's family now. He'll be insufferable when he finds out." "He already knows," Cole chuckled, the sound vibrating through her. "Yeah, he does." Morning came gentle and gold. Jessie was already making breakfast, singing off-key. Ayana had arrived sometime in the night and was braiding her hair. Cole's arm was heavy across Sarah's waist, his breathing deep and even. Sarah lay there, watching dust motes dance in the sunlight, listening to the sounds of her family, and felt peace settle into her bones. The river had taken everything, but it had also brought her Ayana, and Ayana had brought her Cole and Jessie and protection and purpose. Sometimes what looked like a curse was actually a gift in disguise. She slipped out of bed, dressed quietly, and went downstairs. Jessie handed her coffee without a word, smiling that knowing smile. Ayana chattered about something in mixed English and Apache. Cole appeared behind her, dropped a kiss on top of her head, and stole a piece of bacon. This was her life now, messy and imperfect and full of laughter and love. This was her second chance, and she was going to take it with both hands and hold on tight. The river rushed on outside, eternal and endless, but Sarah didn't fear it anymore, didn't let it define her. She'd pulled one life from those waters, and in return those waters had given her back her own. She was Sarah Brennan, widow, survivor, healer, loved, and she was finally, blessedly, home. If this story touched your heart, there are many more nights under western skies waiting, many more souls finding their way back to each other in the wild places where the brave dare to love again.